Hello and welcome to SHIROS, the Everyday Woman podcast. This production is sponsored by the Health Pride Network in Alliance Partners to celebrate International Women's Day 2024. And in doing so, we recognise women everywhere, in all their diversities. We embrace their many facets and intersections of faith, race, ethnicity, gender, sexual identity, or disability. We celebrate those who came before us, those who stand beside us now, and those who will come after. In a world where heroism is often associated with strength, courage, and resilience, the concept of SHIROS emerges as an acknowledgement of women everywhere who embody these qualities in their everyday lives. SHIROS are not just figures of legend or fantasy, but women from all walks of life who inspire and empower others through their daily actions. And as we honour International Women's Day and beyond, the narrative of SHIROS serves as a reminder of the countless women who have blazed trails, shattered ceilings, and inspired generations with their strength and tenacity. In today's podcast, we recognise and celebrate the SHIROS in our lives, those we admire from a distance, and those we have taken learnings from. Our wonderful panel of women today represent all the diverse employee network groups in Alliance Partners, and I'm delighted to be joined by Paula Covey, Chief Marketing Officer in Health and the Health Pride Network sponsor, Michelle Brogan, Head of Go-To-Market in Health, Scarlett Marie Morgan, Resourcing Business Partner in Alliance UK and the Alliance Global Gender Ambassador, and finally, Daniela Monchovi, Group Underwriting Manager in Health. Ladies, you're all very welcome and thank you for joining me today. Paula, if I can kick off with you. A couple of years ago, our International Women's Day theme was 50 over 50, where we celebrated 50 women over the age of 50 in a big poster campaign across all of Alliance Partners and on our social media channels. Since then, the Engage network in Alliance Partners, which is focused on age inclusion, has grown exponentially, even producing a really inclusive employee-centric playbook last year that featured the real employees and their voices. What are your thoughts on where we stand today in terms of celebrating and recognising our female colleagues over 50?
It's a really interesting question. I think there's a lot that Allianz has done on the whole diversity agenda, and something that I'm really proud of actually to be part of Allianz, because it goes beyond just the token tick box. They really are trying to drive that change. But the Forbes Top 100 Most Powerful Women has 80% of the people on there are over 50, and actually more than half of them are over 60. So there is still a lot more I think we could go if we were going to have our dimensions in leadership match some of those dimensions that are coming from the outside. And I think it's a change that's catching out a lot of companies. It's to be understood in terms of those generations, and women are coming into their 50s and 60s are part of that generation that have more financial independence, etc. But there does seem to be this power behind more women taking an acceleration in their career, if you like, in these older age groups than we're used to seeing. So it's not a surprise that companies are still struggling to keep up with that change in demographic.
Correct. And we've seen last year in health as well, where we developed the Moments That Matter policy guideline, which was trying to address, I suppose, the wide range of experience that women experience in all ages of their life. And it really identifies and provides support and guidance around pregnancy loss, fertility and menopause. So topics that we hadn't really provided cover on before. Yeah. So
it's good that Sorry,
Paul. You go.
Say it's good that some of these things are being spoken about. Menopause is a massive topic. It's getting a lot more publicity, a lot more focus, and there's a lot more understanding, I think, about the dimensions that it has. But maybe it's just another element that women have to deal with whilst holding down a career, or in fact accelerating their career.
Yeah, correct. And as you're saying there, we're moving beyond, I suppose we talk about 50 into the 60s and 70s, and aging women are increasingly being represented and celebrated more and more in mainstream media, in things like beauty campaigns, movies, and in the workplace. So no longer viewed as, I suppose, expired. They're really seen now as beacons of self-confidence, self-love, and, their absolute tenacity from the sheer life experience that they have behind them. What women would you say, or in times gone by, have really stood out to you as an inspiration? and what they've achieved, or maybe perhaps what they're actively promoting today?
Yeah, there are lots. I was struggling to kind of get the list down to something tangible. So Ursula von der Leyen, I think, really stands out to me. And I think it's one of the things that I noticed in doing a bit of research is that a lot of the women tend to be a lot quieter about some of their achievements as well. What stands out to me about her going into her second presidency is she really only came into the political arena age 46 and has just gone from strength to strength, taking up some really great positions on the way. She has 7 kids. Is just very quietly and calmly getting on with a massive agenda, which I really, really admire. There's lots of other women that are first in their particular category. There are people out there. There's a 63-year-old astronaut. There are women founding companies in their 70s. And this, to me, I think, is the sorts of things I really aspire to. The thought that you don't stop creating, that you can embrace these different phases of your life, and that innovation and creativity can come in these later stages. So I started thinking about what was the traits that I really respect and admire. And I think it is about, or one of the advantages of maybe being in your 50s and beyond, is that you really know who you are. You're a lot more comfortable in your own skin, what you stand for. And I think that brings a confidence that other people find quite inspiring and comfortable. But for those that have got some humility and are about sharing their wisdom and their experience, I think that's what really stands out for me as the common theme of what I like to see.
Yeah, every generation or decade is the new something, isn't it? Because people say when you get to your 40s, and now I've heard people saying in their 50s, it just gets better and better. So yeah, totally looking forward to that. Scarlett, if I can move over to you, whilst we're celebrating International Women's Day today, we mustn't forget that we are also approaching International Day of Transgender Visibility, which takes place on March 31st. And as a very passionate LGBTQ plus speaker, ally and transgender woman yourself, would you say there are more educated and positive attitudes fostering inclusion for transgender women today versus, say, 3 to 5 years ago? And what has been your experience in that?
Yeah, it is very different now than it was 3 to 5 years ago. 3 to 5 years ago, it was not necessarily a huge thing people were made aware of. They were aware that there was transgender people, but there wasn't businesses pushing the agenda to really support and be inclusive of those members. I would say from an Alliance perspective, I've had nothing but positivity. When I came out, they said, what can we do? How can we support you? And we have had a huge influx in transgender people and LGBTQ members actually applying for roles within the business. Now, I'm not saying that's directly because of myself. It's not. It's purely based on the fact that the business as a whole has really embraced it. We are, of course, though, aware that there are people that are still very much behind where we are at as a business. So for me personally, I've not necessarily had any problems, but I know others have. And I just take pride and joy in the fact that we work for a company that really is a trailblazer. They're so far ahead of the curve for transgender members and transgender staff, such as gender language training for managers. I can't say I've had any negative experience with Alliance at all. So I think it's been a good experience and one that I'm very happy to share with anyone that ever asks about a job or asks anything. I say, go to Alliance, use Alliance, pick Alliance, because I know what they can do for individuals.
Ambassador, you certainly are, and you definitely are, Scarlett, a massive inspiration to many Alliance employees across the globe, because you so generously and candidly share your story and give a real living example. You've done that like countless times. I've worked with you a couple of times as well. I really appreciate it. But I'm really curious, who was your first SHIRO who gave you courage to be who you really are?
It's a really good question, Cara. Ideally, without sounding ridiculously corny, I'm going to have to say Marcella, my mom. She, like Paula's heroes had 7 children. I am one of them. And she was very cutting edge. Now, bearing in mind, she was from an Irish Catholic background. She was so much of an ally. She had a gay son before she had a transgender daughter. She still had another gay son. And she was so much the mindset of you are who you are. And I think it's that she became my Shiro. So I can't find anyone that would ever surpass my mom. And a lot of people be like, oh, here she is talking about a mom again. But she's, your mom is the first woman that you come into contact with, the first woman that you tell your secrets to. So it's kind of my mom is my Shiro. And then, of course, my sister to follow, because she's very much just like my mum. From an iconic perspective, I think every single woman that stands up within the business and wants to be heard, the amazing women that are on the panel today, you included, Cara, they're inspirations and Shiros as well, not just for being here today, but for coming off the call and continuing their work and saying, I'm a woman, I'm here to be heard. Hear me roar.
Indeed. I'm so heartwarmed for you to hear that you said your mother. I hadn't really thought about who you were going to say, but that's lovely. And I think the rest of us are all mothers on the panel. So that's fantastic. That's all you ever want to hear your child say. Thanks, Scarlett. Michelle, as a partner of the Olympic and Paralympic Games, in Alliance Partners, we've had lots of exposure and heard from many female Paralympic athletes over the course of the last 2 years, where disabilities are usually visible, but quite often in the workplace, it's the invisible disabilities that we're unaware of. And in many cases where there's a perceived stigma, I guess, in sharing them. What are your thoughts and experiences on this?
Yeah, so I'm partially deaf. I wasn't born with a hearing impairment, but I found out in my mid-20s. And when I found out, I was devastated, and I was told I had to wear hearing aids. I didn't want to wear hearing aids, and for the primary reason that there is a stigma associated with being deaf, wearing hearing aids, etc. And I think probably when I was growing up, that stigma was probably more prevalent. I think probably nowadays with the younger generation, it's probably more accepting, and that's probably more through the awareness of disabilities and about not hiding away, and it being more, I guess, in the forefront that you can see them, and with that brings acceptance. But I do think with particularly with a hearing disability, it can be confused with rudeness sometimes, because, if you don't hear someone and they call out your name when you walk past, or you're asking someone to repeat themselves multiple times, or you mishear someone and you give the wrong response, people's perception could be, you're rude, and they don't actually realize this, that you can't hear. So I would definitely urge people, if they have a hearing issue, to get hearing aids, because for me now, my hearing aids are a complete lifeline. I wouldn't be without them, and I've gone the other way. I'm a big supporter of hearing aids, and it doesn't bother me to tell anyone. But at the same time, I don't go around saying, "Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm deaf," because that would be weird. But in different situations, if I'm struggling to hear someone, I will call it out to make sure that there isn't any miscommunication on it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Michelle. Have you seen anyone lead the way in female disability awareness and promotion in the workplace or otherwise that you found to be an inspiration or a catalyst of change?
Yeah, there's a young athlete, Ellen Keane, who's actually, she's an Irish swimmer in the Paralympics, and Allianz actually sponsors her as well. And she is so visible within the media. She's part of the Allianz advertising campaigns. I've seen her interviewed multiple times, and she really is trying to break down the stigma around disabilities, and, showing people that, you can have a disability and you are just the same as everyone else. And I think through her work, she's definitely normalizing disabilities, which is great to see. From my own personal experience, when I was growing up, my cousin's uncle was in a wheelchair. He had polio when he was young, and I really admire him because he never let his disability define him. He was very much lived an independent life. He was a very happy person, and whatever he wanted to do, he did it. And, he himself back in the 80s was someone who was leading the way at really showing people that, you can have a disability, but you can still lead your life.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks for sharing that, Michelle. I'm just going to pop over to Daniela now as well. Daniela, just to speak to you as well. You originate from Cameroon and live in Paris. What is your perspective on the SHIROS that inspired you growing up, and how they shaped you, how that kind of affects how you present yourself today and as a mother?
Thank you, Kara, for the opportunity to speak on this panel that celebrates all women. As Oprah once said, it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. The ability to triumph begins with you always. My SHIROS growing up with my mom, and my aunts, they were my SHIROS because of their strength, their resilience in the face of adversity, and their independence. They were firm believers that anything a man can do, a woman can do even better. And that you would always have to, as a woman, do twice the work, but eventually you'll be able to get there. As a result, I find it very important to encourage women of all ethnicities to view their difference as a strength rather than a barrier. Women, regardless of their background, have to be placed at the very center of society. Being a mom to 3 wonderful humans has taught me patience, lots of it. It has also taught me tolerance and has helped me appreciate the fact that people are different and should be treated according to their very unique personality traits. As a working mom, I have to navigate between the different yet compatible roles of mother and manager. I call myself now a momager.
Yeah, this is brilliant. I liked your point about 3 different individuals, 3 different personalities you do. That teaches you a lot. Would you say your version of a SHIRO and what that concept means to you has altered then, I suppose, as you've become an adult? In other words, are you looking for different achievements or results from the SHIROS today versus what your younger self was looking up towards?
Yeah, definitely my perspective of SHIROS has evolved as I became an adult, from immediate family members to more inspiring women like Michelle Obama, Oprah Winfrey, and Candy Burroughs. So I'm no longer relying exclusively on my relative, of course, but also on these women as I've grown older. My view of what a SHIRO is has also somewhat shifted in terms of the fact that I feel they come in different shapes and forms. Similarly to the working women that society would usually praise, I believe that a stay-at-home mother running her household and taking care of her kids shouldn't be undermined. A single mother working different jobs just to make ends meet is a force to be reckoned with. And I also praise women that refuse to conform to what society expects of them. They have my wholehearted admiration.
Yeah. If I can just jump back to all of us now to have a conversation, I just want to ask, knowing what you know now, and thank you everyone for sharing your specific view in each area of the networks that we've focused on, but knowing what you know now as an adult woman and the life skills you have, what you've learned along the way, what is the one thing you know now that you wish you could tell your teenage or young woman self? And Paula, if I could start with you, and we'll go around again, Scarlett, Michelle, and then Daniela.
It's a lot longer list than one.
Yeah.
But if I have to pick just one, I would say learn to ask for help. Ask for help. You'll always be given help, and nobody has all the answers and can do it all. So it took me a while to learn a bit about vulnerability. But yeah, ask for help.
I think it takes us all that length of time. I agree. Scarlett, can I ask you?
Yeah, I mean, of course, my experience is a little bit different from a teenager. But I will be honest, I always say this, acceptance. If I would have accepted myself as a teenager rather than trying to conform to society and trying to conform to fitting into a box and being scared of pushing the boundaries, I think I would have had a little bit of a different life. So I would definitely say acceptance. The one bit of advice I always say is every single woman is the most beautiful piece of art. No other artist could imitate it. And we're all in one gallery together. So it's always good just to show off and accept who you are.
Fantastic. Thanks, Scarlett. Michelle, if we go to you next.
Yeah, I would agree with Paula on the, don't be afraid to ask for help. I think sometimes you think you have to figure out all the answers yourself, and the answer is, ask someone else to help you with it, because it will definitely make a big difference. And I think also just be kind and be yourself, because when you're yourself, what's not to like?
Lovely. This is extremely uplifting to me. I'm loving this, listening to all your answers. Daniela.
Yeah. So, what I would tell my younger self is to surround myself with positive people that would support my growth rather than criticize it. I would also consistently spend time with people from whom I can learn and who help me become the best person, the best version of myself that I can be. So that's what I'll be telling my teenage self if I had to go back in time.
Well, just on that note, and I suppose on the last bit of everything that we've gone through there, and your last piece of words or advice that you'd give to your teenage self, I think really encompasses our whole conversation. And from my own perspective, I just want to say thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time to get involved in this today. Really appreciate working with you, hearing from you, and wish you all a lovely International Women's Day 2024.
Thank you.
Great hearing your answers. Thanks very much for being part of it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.